All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the second of the three presentations on finance for the Things You Wish They Taught in School series. Each month in this series, we'll cover a different topic split among multiple sessions occurring Tuesdays through May that are led by experts in the field to help answer any of your questions on some things that you either know or you don't know very well and you think you should. My name is Kaylee, and I will be moderating the presentation today for our speakers, Dem and John, and they'll be guiding us as we learn how to cover protecting our identity. And then after the session, feel free to ask any questions that you have. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to them.
Says you stopped our video. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is John, and I work at Hilltop Bank. I'm the sales and service manager at our Mountain Plaza office, and I've been in banking for a little over 7 years now.
Hi, I'm Dimitra. I am the sales and service manager at Hilltop at the downtown office, and I've been in banking 16 years.
So today we're going to cover just how to help understand identity fraud, kind of what it is and what signs to look out for, and worst case scenario, if you are a victim of identity fraud, to what actions you can take to prevent it from being worse on you. So what is it? Identity fraud is when a criminal steals your personal information about an individual and basically assumes your identity. They can run up huge bills, which then stiffs the creditors, and it can wreck your personal credit history. In 2019 alone, 14.4 million consumers became victims of identity fraud. That's about 1 in 15 people. Overall, 33% of US adults have experienced some sort of identity theft. So how does it happen? A thief can steal your personal information directly or indirectly by stealing wallets, purses containing your ID cards, credit cards, and bank information. Sometimes they will actually steal your mail. They'll go through garbage to find old credit card bills and bank statements, or even utility bills can have some of your information. Another quite common method of fraud is friendly fraud, because the criminal is a friend or a family member and then has access to said victim's information. Some of this has to deal with cybersecurity, and it's been going up a lot due to COVID-19 as well. Fraudsters can create a scam post with emails and fake information that can range from information about COVID-19 or did you make this purchase, in hopes in getting you to click on it to bait you in. An example of this would be, it'll lead you to a map of a COVID-19 cases near you, but when you actually click that link, it actually puts malware or spyware on your computer, which then has access to your banking passwords, and they can see all that.
So increasing in 2020, there is COVID scams, and then there's also an increase in the romance scams, according to the Federal Trade Commission. Fraudsters are doing fraudulent e-commerce vendors because people know how important it is for masks, sanitizer, and kits. There's fraudulent investment sites. They will also send out phishing emails, texts, and voicemails. Phishing is a popular type of internet scam in which the fraudulent people send emails claiming to be from a reputable company, and they're basically trying to get you to click on the link, which will then infect your computer. They have fake scam employments, charity ones. The romance scams over the last 3 years have increased and they're the most on the rise. There's reported losses that reached a record of 304 million, up 50% from 2019. These are just common two ones, but working in the bank, people may think that we're being nosy if you come in to wire funds to someone in a different country. A lot of that is us just trying to figure out if you're being scammed or if you're not. So when we ask questions, that's how we are sometimes able to prevent people being out the money for that. Part of the reason why the romance is on the rise is because of the COVID and the pandemic, because people can't meet in person. So they try and win you over by, calling, and then eventually after they get your trust, they're going to ask you to send them money. They're going to tell you a family member has a medical emergency or they need to get the COVID test. Another popular one is they will ask you to go buy thousands of dollars worth of gift cards, and then you're supposed to call and give them the PIN number, and then they just take the money off the card.
So how long does it take to recover if you're a victim? And that varies depending on the type of identity theft or fraud that you've incurred. But anywhere can be 1 to 200 hours or even up to 6 months. Credit card fraud is when someone uses your credit card or they open up a new line of credit, but they don't have any sensitive information. Typically, all this takes is just reporting it to that credit card company. They get it shut down. You still will have to follow up to dispute that credit to make sure it doesn't hurt you. If in the event that your Social Security is stolen, to open up a new credit account in your name, this can take months to work out with the creditors and credit reporting agencies to dispute and actually prove that it wasn't you. If the thief manages to use your credit to incur tax debts and commit other crimes, years to work to undo all that damage. As soon as you become aware of anything, you need to make sure that you report it to local law enforcement right away, and to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and the Federal Trade Commission, which in some later slides, we do have this information for you. Another great thing to do is also to add a fraud alert or freeze to your credit report right away. There are 3 credit bureaus that the United States uses with TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. You would have to individually reach out to all 3 to put a credit freeze on each of them, or at the very least, you can put a credit alert that states that they have to be reached out to you personally before any line can be open. Everyone with a Social Security number is at risk for identity theft, but 2 demographics are targeted aggressively, and that's often people that are very young because they don't know about credits yet. They sometimes don't even think to look at what their credit might be, or someone that is very old. The reason those are preyed on, they're sometimes easier scammed into a fraud attempt, or they might not have a lot of debt anymore, so they're not as active in protecting their credit as they were previous. Children are targeted because they can use the child's Social Security number to establish a clean slate of credit. It is recommended that if you are a parent, to monitor your children's credit reports occasionally. Seniors are targeted most often over the telephone and through internet phishing scams. And then also members of the military who are deployed are vulnerable because they may not notice mistakes in their credit report or be able to even receive the call from their debt collectors regarding fraudulent charges. This group is mostly affected by the credit card and bank fraud.
So another question is, how do banks and credit card companies protect you? Banks use a combination of safeguards to protect your information. We do a lot of employee training, which is why they ask a lot of questions. We have strict privacy policies. We have security standards, encryption of information, and fraud detection programs. We also make sure that online banking is protected. Sometimes, like businesses, they have a token, so it's dual control password as opposed to just your regular password. Credit card have issued advanced security systems in place that flag unusual account activity. They also have encryption technology, which allows them to ensure that your online purchases are secure. Finally, many companies also offer options such as adding your photo to your credit card. Customers can be protected from loss. It depends on your financial institution and credit card companies. Most bank-related incidents of ID theft, if reported in a timely manner, um, the customer may only be liable up to $50 of unauthorized charges. And many lenders will even waive that amount if the loss is reported in a timely manner. And an affidavit to the theft is signed.
So what are some helpful tips that we can do to let me go back real quick. Hold on, skipped a slide on me. So some identity theft prevention tips. The best one is just don't provide your social security number or any account information to anyone who contacts you directly online or over the phone. It's really no different than the bank. If we're reaching out to you, we have this information, and typically speaking, we're not going to ask for your social because we have that or a full account number. Shred receipts and bank statements and unused credit card offers before throwing them away. Most people will hold on to them for a while just for tax purposes. But once you do to make the leap to actually throw them away, it's best to get them shredded. A lot of local businesses will offer, I know in Casper, they have the big shredding events, at least pre-COVID, where you could just take your documents in to the parking lot at Walmart and get everything shredded. Keep an eye out for missing mail, such as your monthly bank or credit card statements. Consider enrolling in online banking to prevent having less stuff go through the mail. Most credit cards, most banks right now, they can set up for e-statements to where you can view all your bills online without ever having anything come through the mail. That also goes the same with paying your bills to where you can just pay those electronically. So that way a check isn't going out in the mail with that. Another great one to use is to set up alerts on your account. It's something that I personally use in my life to where if any transaction over $100 gives in my account, whether it's electronically or through any of my debit cards, I get an alert directly on my phone, just through a text message, and it also goes to my email as well. You can do this too if you're always really good about keeping a good balance in your account. You can set up balance thresholds to where if it drops below a certain point, that it will notify you in the same way as well. And as I mentioned, purchases earlier, with any type of purchase, it'll notify you right away. Don't mail bills from your own mailbox with the flag up. That's just asking for someone to go by and pick that up before your mailman comes. So use the general mailing boxes if you live in a community there, or just use the blue boxes anywhere around town. It's always great to monitor your financial accounts regularly for any fraudulent transactions. This is typically done just through online banking. It's a click of a button. You can check your balance to see if anything came through that you can't see. And as soon as you find that out, the most important is to let your financial institution know right away if you believe you are a victim. The sooner that any institution is aware of it, the better chance they have to prevent future fraud and to potentially get your money back. You need to order a free copy of your credit report every 4 months from one of the 3 bureaus. So as I mentioned earlier, we have Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, which they are required every year to give you a free credit report. So you can go to annualcreditreport.com, or you can call the number. So basically each bureau is going to give you a report. So if you check every 4 months, you'll be hitting all those reports every year to see. It's really good, especially if you haven't taken out a loan in a while. It's always good to see what's out there to help prevent that. Make sure that your virus protection software is updated on your computer, especially during times of COVID. The criminals have not been sleeping. If anything, they've had more time to stay at home and think of other ways to get into your computers. So having up-to-date activeware and virus software is very important. Don't reveal sensitive information on social networks. That includes taking the quizzes on Facebook that, what was my first dog or what street did I grow up on? Because that information can be taken because a lot of those type questions are your security codes to certain accounts that you might have. So if the fraudsters get that information, then they can go in and reset your password and have access to everything. And don't post when you're out of town. That's just asking for someone to break in your house and steal information. Protect your PIN number. Do not share this with anyone, including children or anything, and use a combination of letters and numbers for your passwords and change them periodically. Always wipe your cell phone clean before donating or selling it online. You can go in and do a factory reset. That way it takes everything completely off of it before giving it back. It's always good to have on your smartphone. Some people think, well, I don't have anything important on there. But if you do use online banking, a lot of times they can get into that easy. And as we mentioned earlier, report any suspected fraud to your bank immediately. The sooner you can report it, the better chance the bank has to, at the very least, stopping future fraud, but if not, getting your money back.
So what happens if you are a victim? As John said, call your bank immediately and the credit cards issuers immediately so they can close your accounts. Contact the 3 credit reporting agency. You can place a fraud alert on there for a year, or you can do a credit freeze. And we have listed on here the numbers for the 3 credit bureaus that you can call. You can also go online and report it to the Federal Trade Commission. It'll kind of walk you through step by step, and that's at www.identitytheft.com or .gov, or you can call the phone number. It's helpful to file a police report. Make sure to maintain a log. If it's taking 100 or 200 hours or up to 6 months to solve this, you want to make sure you know who you talk to, what time you talk to them, date and time will help. You can go back to the Federal Trade's website. There's the email address there. I looked at it. It kind of walks you through and asks you questions about it. There's a different website to report it. And there's also a website to report if you're a victim of the romance scams.
So this next slide right here is just an example of a log that you could use. We went ahead and filled some of the numbers in for you, but it's always good just to keep detailed information because, as Demetra said, that if you're going to be on the phone for sometimes months trying to get stuff straightened out, you need to keep detailed records of who you spoke to and with. Some other agencies that you might need to know. If you have any medical identity theft, contact your Medicare's fraud office right away. Tax identity theft, report tax ID theft to the IRS. National Long-Term Care and the Resource Center reports cases of identity theft due to a stay in a nursing home or a long-term care facility. Retailers and other companies report the crime to companies where the identity thief opened credit accounts and even applied for jobs. Then you also have the state attorney general offices. Your state's attorney general might offer tips and checklists or an advocate to help you recover from identity theft. These resources don't replace filling out ID theft report with the Federal Trade Commission. Okay.
Questions?
So we have any questions before we kind of move on to some, we'll actually give you some actual examples that we've ran across over the years. Because I know a lot of people think that, oh, it can't happen to me, but it happens in Casper, Wyoming a lot, and can even happen to us personally.
So one example that I had personally at a financial institution that I worked at was we had a customer who was told he was getting a loan, but he needed to wire funds. When he went to go to Western Union, they had some questions, told him to come to the bank. When he showed up at the bank, the fraudster kept calling him nonstop on the phone saying, don't talk to the bank, don't tell them. They told him if he didn't wire the funds to him, the police were coming and he was going to get thrown in jail. So it took me an hour to convince him that this was a fraud and that if he actually were to wire the money, he would be out the $2,000 and that he would be liable for it. He wouldn't go to jail, and it would probably be hard to find the fraudsters. I actually had the privilege of talking to the fraudster on the line, and he didn't like that I told him that I worked at the bank and he needed to quit calling the customer. So he hung up on me, but in the end, our job was to protect the customer, and that's what we did. It may take some convincing because people, like I said, if they're older, they're more trusting or they really think it's legit.
So, a lot of people, especially if you're younger, you think that it can't happen to me. I can say that I actually potentially almost got my ID stolen during COVID, but luckily, I have it set up to where if anything on my credit report is, if someone tries to pull my credit, it pulls up right away. But I personally actually had someone try to take out a small business loan, which was very common during COVID. So no matter what your age is, it can happen to you. So it's important to put those safeguards in place. Mine was anytime that my credit is pulled, I get a notification right away in my email saying, did you apply for a loan somewhere? And luckily I was like, well, no, I haven't. So I was able to stop that. Some other instances of scams that have been going around lately that have been pretty common are car wrap scams. And basically the ruse is that they reach out to you as like a Pepsi Cola, Dr. Pepper, name any of the companies that you would recognize their logo, and they'll say, all right, well, if you put your logo on your car, we're going to pay you. So they're going to basically send you a check and basically say, here's some of the startup costs to help put that logo on, but we need some of that money back. And that's going to be your first red flag there. If anyone is attempting to send you money, then they want you to send it back. Typically, they're going to say you need to send this back within 48 hours of depositing it. That's going to be a 99% chance fraud. What happens is you deposit that check. If the bank didn't have a hold on it or anything, or sometimes it might not come back, but you deposit that check, you wire the money, or you'll send gift cards, or you'll send a money order from the post office to them, typically the day that you made that deposit. And then about 3 or 4 days later, the bank gets notification that check was fictitious. So then what happens at that point is you're liable for all that money. So they sent you a $7,000 check, but they wanted a couple grand of it back. Well, if you went and spent that money, then now you're on the hook for that $7,000 check. So that's been very, very popular lately. Publishers Clearinghouse is another popular one. One of the first questions that should always be asked is if I'm even a member of Publishers Clearinghouse. But basically, it's the same ruse. You get a letter in the mail stating that you have won this contest through Publishers Clearinghouse, and here is a check. But due to processing fees, we need X amount of dollars back, or local and state taxes. You have to send X amount of money back. Again, 3 or 4 days later, that check is going to come back, and then you're going to be on the hook for the same amount.
Another one that they like to prey on is generally they'll call the grandparents and say that their granddaughter or grandson has been arrested in Mexico, and they, if you provide bail money, they won't go to jail. So then they're asked to wire the funds. The thing to do is to call family members and make sure that they truly had left. That happened to a customer that I had helped. She was in a frantic, and we said maybe you should try contacting your grandson first. And when she had calmed down and called, she realized it was a scam. A lot of them are mystery shoppers. They'll get the check in the mail saying if you want to become a mystery shopper, you can get same thing like John said. And then they're usually wanting you to send back some money. Once again, those are all fraudulent scams.
So basically, and like I said, another form of scam is if they're wanting you to purchase gift cards, because one thing about those gift cards is once they're purchased, they can't just be shut off and refunded, especially when the number on the back has been given to them or if they've been mailed off. So that's why a lot of times they'll go to these stores and they might have $1,000 of your money, but they'll purchase just $50 gift cards through and through because then the store doesn't get suspicious about that, and then your money is gone as well. So there's lots of different ways, like we've mentioned a few times here during this presentation, is COVID has just made it worse. People are out of work, and they're desperate, and so they're preying on that. These fraudsters, they'll send out thousands upon thousands of emails with just pretty generic information that hopes that it's close enough to a purchase that someone made that they'll basically click on it. So if you ever get a weird email, a great tool to use is just if you just hover over the icon, because a lot of times it's going to have a link. If you hover over that link, it's going to show you where it's going to actually send that website to. So if it's an actual legit, if it's something from the IRS or anything like that, it would direct you to the IRS website. But odds are, you hover over that link, it's going to send you to a random whole bunch of random letters that you can't even say, and then they're going to be able to get your information or get you to enter the information because it looks so real. With your debit card information, they'll ask you to verify it, and then there you have your number, and before you even have a chance to turn it off, they're going to go and spend your money.
Does anyone have any other questions?
Yeah. So, the main thing is everyone is vulnerable to it, no matter what your age is. The key thing is to have those safe places in place. Put alerts on your accounts if you use online banking. Set up, through the annualcreditreport.com to get those free credit reports every year. They're free. They're a gift to you. So it's very good to use them, especially if you don't apply for loans very often. And also have those alerts set up that if your credit is pulled with your social, you're able to stop it right away without causing any future damage. So there's lots of tools out there. The most important is just to take advantage of them. And it kind of comes back to that old saying too, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So nothing, typically people just aren't going to send you money, and especially if they want to send it back, that's just going to be immediate red fraud. If you get anything like that, bring it into your local financial institution, and they'll gladly, call to verify checks for you and do whatever they can to make sure you're not a victim of fraud. So any questions?
Okay, so I actually have one to ask. What about job scams? Are they common? Where would we find them, and how would we go about avoiding those?
Ooh. I don't know the answer. I know they happen. I know some people, they're using like your social security, they'll have your name and address. It's important for the person, conducting the interview to make sure that that's truly the person in front of them. So they should be asking some questions. I mean, I know they're probably going to have like a fake ID. I know sometimes then you'll get a letter in the mail, whether you got the job or not. So if you are truly the victim, you're going to get a letter notifying you if you got the job or if you didn't. So that'll be a red flag then for you to call the place of employment to notify them that that's truly not you. I would file a police report.
Yeah, the main thing with those is, and especially in the time that we live in, a lot of companies are hiring over Zoom. So you're not meeting in person. So it's important to, where did you find that job listing? Was it just a Facebook post? But I would always verify with the company directly. It's really no different than if a check comes into the bank that we have questions about, we're not going to call the number on the check. We're going to take do a little bit of research. So go to the actual company's website. Don't just, especially if it's just a random link that you're clicking, make sure this is a legit job posting. Reach out to the HR department of that company to make sure, oh yes, yeah, we do have an actual job listing, before you fill out that application. So it's always just kind of trust but verify is always a good scenario with those, especially in a time where we're hiring people over Zoom.
If anyone else has any questions, you're welcome to unmute and ask. All right, well, I just see one here in the chat, and is that, will you be sending us a copy of the slides?
We definitely can. That is no problem at all. We'll get with Haley and we'll see how to get that arranged.
All right, anyone else have any questions? Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone for coming. And thank you to Dem and John for giving this presentation and answering our questions about protecting our identity. Next week, we will have our third and final video on finance on Tuesday, the 23rd at 5 o'clock. So we hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thank you all.